Hello quilt friends, welcome back to week 6 of the Winter Wonder Sampler Sew Along. As you can see today, my backdrop is not my Winter Wonder Sampler quilt. That quilt is traveling. I am going to Garden of Quilts in Utah next week, and so I had to ship all of my newer quilts off for the show. So if you're not familiar with the Garden of Quilts, you can go ahead and Google that, or even go to Instagram and type that in the search bar, and you'll see all the fun, beautiful settings there are. That show takes place in Ashton Gardens, and so there are quilts outside in the gardens, and they also have a lot of classes and special events. So as one of the Riley Blake fabric designers, I'm going to be there teaching some classes. So that is why that quilt is not here with me for our little intro to our video. I'll just tell you a little bit about what we're going to do this week. In the video, we're going to be making our mitten blocks. So there are 6 of them, but they're easy to make and there aren't very many pieces. So I will go ahead and walk you through some of the cutting and piecing and assembly for those blocks. And next week, I think I'll try to shoot our little intro at Garden of Quilts, so you'll maybe see a little bit more there, and then I will have the quilt with me. So stay tuned and follow along for the next couple of videos on how to assemble those mitten blocks. Hello quilt friends, welcome back to the Winter Wonder Sew Along. This week we are going to be making our mitten sections. So that is right here on our pattern on page 8. So I have some of my pieces cut and we are ready to start assembling. So we're going to be doing more folded corners. You need a 2-inch piece here that'll be sewn onto your mitten. And I've already gone ahead and I've drawn my line using my friction pen that I mentioned to you earlier. And I just wanted to show you, since I have my iron handy, what happens to that line after you press it. And this is why I like this pen so much. You don't have to worry about those lines showing or bleeding later. So do you see how when I press that, it just totally disappears? It's that easy to get rid of those lines. I'm going to go back and draw this line so that I can use it for my sewing. Now, if you remember, the reason I like to draw all these lines when doing my folded corners is so that I can sew on the outside edge of the line. So if this is the outside corner of my block, I'm going to sew just right on the outside edge of that drawn line, and that will allow for the turn of the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I like to sew from a scrap of fabric onto my piece. I always call it a bunny tail, that scrap of fabric. And that way it doesn't eat the corners as I'm coming up to them. All right, now I'm just going to sew on the outside edge of the line. I'm going to sew onto another scrap. Now if you're doing all of them at once, you'd be able to chain piece this. But I'm just going to show you. Do you see how it's just barely on the outside edge of that line there? Now I'm going to show you another method for doing the folded corner on the other side of the mitten, or on the other top corner, and that is using this diagonal seam tape. Now, like I said, I kind of prefer drawing the line and sewing on the outside edge because it allows for the turn of the fabric here like this, so that when this gets folded over, it doesn't end up being shy from that piece behind. But if you're doing something that maybe doesn't require so much precision, you can do other methods, or maybe you have good luck with the other methods and you're just as precise. But I find this one is the most precise for me, but I'm going to show you a couple other options. So this one is the diagonal seam tape. It looks like this. It's made by Cluck Cluck Sew, and it's just like washi tape. You cut a piece off and you put it on your machine, and my machine has guides here that I can see. I can line my tape up here with the grooves on the bed of my machine, and that way I get it perfectly in position so the red line is in line with my needle. Then as you're sewing, first of all, you're going to line up the needle with the top of that corner. Then you're going to look down here and follow, as you sew, the bottom corner of that square along the red line, just like this. So as you can see here, it's the same effect. Then you're going to press and making sure that that comes to the outside edge of the line. Now I can see, I'm going to hold this up, that there's that little bit shy. That doesn't usually happen for me when I draw the line like so. But go ahead and try both methods, see what you think. And you can also trim the bulk off of the corners like this. And then you can do your pressing. So I think I'll go ahead and press that right now here. Just bring in my little temporary mat here. And I'm using just a little travel iron. I normally use a big steam tank iron with steam. I mentioned that in one of my past episodes here. Okay, so that piece is ready. Now we're going to work on the little mitten piece. So this one has a little tiny folded corner, just a 1 1/4 inch piece. And I'm going to show you yet one more method for doing that, and that for doing the folded corners, and that is using the Creative Grids folded corner clipper. So the thing about this tool is you don't have to draw any lines, and you don't have to draw any or trim any corners. So you just lay the ruler down on your two pieces when they're laid together as ready to be sewn, and then you're just going to use your rotary cutter and you're going to trim that corner off, and then you are ready to just sew along using this bias cut edge as your guide for your edge of your 1/4 inch quilt. So it is really quick and easy. You have to do that trimming method on usually a bunch of them at once to kind of make it more fast and efficient, but you can see how slick that is. And I think that method works great for small pieces like this because you don't have to worry about the bias stretching out so much. If you were doing a large folded corner, like 3 or 4 inches, that's a long bias edge to sew on and you might get some stretching and distortion. But these little corners, it works pretty slick on. So again, that's the folded corner clipper ruler. There's a few of them listed on my website if you're interested in checking that one out. All right, let's go ahead and press this corner as well. Just like that. And we need to connect these two pieces. Now this also requires the folded corner technique, but we're going to make this a diagonal seam between the two pieces. So you can look again at the picture in your pattern, but they're going to lay at a 90-degree corner like so, and then you're going to sew from this corner up here to the black corner that's kind of hidden underneath there. So that's where your diagonal seam is going to be. So if you are trying to figure out where that corner is, you might even just want to mark on the front of your white so that you can see where that corner is. And then you can lay your ruler down on top if you're going to draw the line, or if you're going to do the folded corner clipper, you can lay that on there like so and trim. I didn't lay it up. Actually, that was the easy angle. I was going to show you guys that and I almost forgot. So this would have been laying on there like that when you do your trimming. But this is a newer tool, but I've had this easy angle for years and years. I don't know, 25 years maybe. And it's very similar. So you could use that same tool to do the trimming. So if you happen to have this really old tool in your stash, that will also do the same thing as this folded corner clipper. So that's why I wanted to mention it. I thought there might be some other older quilters around that have that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this folded corner here. And there, you get the little piece for your thumb. So again, you can trim that bulk off of there. And then we need one more piece sewn on top here. That'll be a straight seam, and that will make the rest of your mitten. So you'll be able to connect the bottom, the bottom of your mitten, and these two pieces, and then along here, and that will finish off your mitten. All right, there you can see I've completed my mitten. And one thing you need to keep in mind is we're going to make 3 that face this direction, and we're going to make 3 that face the opposite direction. So you're going to have some mittens that are mirror images of each other. So you can see there are my 2 black ones facing that way, 2 black ones facing this way, and then 1 each of the teal, and then they all have the matching cuff. Then what you're going to do is you have little spacers here that you're going to sew in between your mittens. There are 2 of them, and then you're going to have a border strip that goes on either side. So those are your 2 sections that you need to make for this week. So if you have any questions for me, you can leave them in the comments. Otherwise, we'll be back next week to start working on the tree blocks.